You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the productivity specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 172. Get passionate about rediscovering play with Jeff Harry. If you're a business owner who wants to improve your time management and elevate your productivity so you can maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm looking forward to this episode because you're going to meet our guest, Jeff Harry. Jeff shows individuals and companies how to tap into their true selves to feel their happiest and most fulfilled, all by playing. Jeff has worked with Google, Microsoft, Southwest Airlines, Adobe, the NFL, Amazon, and Facebook, helping their staff to infuse more play in the day-to-day. Jeff is an international speaker who has presented at conferences such as Inbound, South by Southwest, and Australia's Pause Fest, showing audiences how major issues in the workplace can be solved using play. Jeff was selected by Bamboo HR and Engagedly as one of the top 100 HR influencers of 2020 for his organizational development work around dealing with toxic people in the workplace. His play work has recently been featured in the New York Times article, How Do We Add More Play to Our Grown-Up Life, Even Now? Please join me in welcoming Jeff to Productivity Straight Talk. You are in for such a treat and a great conversation where you're going to hear me have some big aha moments and connecting dots and a little behind the scenes on what my approach to play has been in my business. And before we jump in, I want to remind you about a free event that's coming up that my friend Carol Cox is hosting. She is hosting a free virtual live event October 15th, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. It's a mix of TED-style 10-minute talks by diverse women speakers who will be sharing their big ideas and powerful personal stories about how they've used their voice to challenge the status quo. There will also be panel discussions so that you can learn how to craft a stellar speech and build your thought leadership platform. If you enjoy speaking or want to get better at speaking or just want to hear high-quality speeches, then what are you waiting for? Join me for this free live event. You can get all the details and register by going to speakingyourbrand.com/summit. Again, that is speakingyourbrand.com/summit. And now, let's get to the straight talk. Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk. Jeff, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this episode. It's a bit different, and that's why I'm going to love bringing it to my audience for sure. So you reached out to me about this concept of adding more play and fun into our business and life. And when I saw that topic come through, I was like, yes. I mean, not just now in this time and space, but as business owners, we can take ourselves kind of serious. And so I cannot wait to dive in and just talk about the benefits of keeping it light and enjoyable and all of those great things and how we can actually do that in our day-to-day while keeping our productivity high.
Yes.
So before we jump into all of that, Jeff, why don't you share a little bit about yourself that I didn't share in your official bio? Like, who is Jeff and how do you become a play expert? Like, what has happened in your life to get you here? Because that is so interesting.
Sure. So I'll tell you the short version. Do you remember the movie Big with Tom Hanks? So when I saw Big, he was playing with toys for a living. So as soon as I saw that movie, I started writing toy companies in 5th grade. And I just kept writing them until one wrote me back and told me to go into mechanical engineering. Went into mechanical engineering, graduated, and went to work for the toy industry. And I was like, this is going to be my dream. And then I found myself stuck in a cubicle surrounded by people that weren't playing. There were no toys for us to play with. And it just was really boring. And I felt like my soul was being sucked from me, right?
Yes.
And then I worked at more toy companies and I was just like, maybe it's this one or this one, but it just kept disappointing me. So I had a quarter life crisis. And while I had this quarter life crisis, I went on Craigslist and I found this organization that was teaching kids engineering with Lego. And there were 7 nerdy guys that were part of that organization at the time. And I joined them and I just started playing because we were getting kids to play as a way to learn. And we grew it into one of the largest Lego-inspired STEM organizations in the country over like the next 15 years. So it went from 7 people to 400 people. We started teaching about 100,000 kids a year. We've probably taught like 1 million kids a year by the time, it was like 2015. And then while this was happening, because it was based out of the Bay, I started working with a lot of tech companies because they would come up to us and be like, hey, you play with Lego, so could you run team building events for us? And we would just say yes. We didn't know what we were doing, but we would just say yes to everything, right? Even how we expanded the organization, we'd be like, which cities do we want? Let's pick the fun cities. Austin, yes. New York, yes. Parts of South Dakota, no. We'll come back to that later, right? And we're just making it up as we go along, but we were playing, and that's how we were expanding. And then what I realized when I was running a lot of these team building events, I found that a lot of organizations wanted to address creativity, collaboration, connection, but they didn't want to address the harder issues. So I created my own separate organization called Rediscovering Play, where we tackle challenging issues through play. So issues like dealing with your inner critic, that mean voice in your head, dealing with toxicity at the workplace, that mean person, that's not in your head, but near you, right? How do you create a more inclusive workplace, which really should be addressed right now during this really political time. So those are the questions that I wanted to dive into. And now, how do you navigate uncertainty in a play-oriented mindset?
Oh my gosh. Okay, that is a great story of full circle, right? And also what I think we would all love to hear is that you said yes to opportunities and one thing led to another until you're in this place where you can actually bring more joy to people's lives in everyday life. And when you and I spoke about this topic in this interview prior to recording, it came to me that I wanted to bring this topic because I think a lot of people approach running a business as it's business and work so that I can have my weekends to play. And then when business takes over or they feel overwhelmed, the first thing that gets pushed out is play and fun. Yes. And so let's just dive into why is it important to integrate play and joy and fun into our everyday and what can that do for us?
So whenever someone asks me this question, I ask, how's your 2020 going? Right? What was your vision of what 2020 was going to be in December 2019? And how is it now? And what I find is what play provides is it provides you the opportunity to let go of results. And I think a lot of people have not mourned what they lost in 2020. Many people thought their business was going to boom in 2020. They were going to get married. They were going to travel the world, all these amazing things. But when you're able to actually play, you're able to let go of the results and be fully present in the moment and then be adaptable, especially during these uncertain times, which is vital right now. So being able to embrace that is one thing, but also when you're in play, you are also in flow. And when you're in flow, you actually are able to see more opportunities that are in front of you because you're positive priming your brain to see those. But when you're so fixated on it has to happen this way, I have to get business this way, you miss out on all those other opportunities, all of those organic experiences that you had. And you've played before because when you travel and you're so open to just saying yes, and you're like, yes, I will go on this adventure. Yes, I will hop on this moped. Yes, this moped moped will take me to a deserted island. Oh my gosh, there's a party on that island. Oh wow, I found the person that I fell in love with on that island. So like when you're able to just play with it, you're able to just explore what's possible in your business.
Okay, so just for clarity, you're defining play as being in the flow, being open, taking opportunities as they come. Is that correct?
Yes, I actually define play as any joyful action you do where you are able to let go of results and you forget about time.
Okay, that is hilarious because I have got to be completely honest. Well, I am always honest, but I have to tell this story.
Yes.
So I am obviously just a task list. Everything has a place, super organized. But I also have another side to me. And that side is when I go on vacation, I literally just put my hands up and I'm like, I need to check out. Like my favorite vacations are me doing completely opposite of what my normal personality is and just be like, so let's just see what the day has. And those have been our very, very best vacations. But I've also had vacations where I planned out our entire trip to the T, mapping it out on my phone at Disneyland. And those were stressful. And I wasn't where I wanted to be by a certain time of the day in the park. And so my husband was like, let it go. Let it go. And as soon as I started doing that purposely on vacations, it was like, I wasn't let down. We were looking for adventure. And so we had no expectations. Okay.
Yep.
That was me just saying yes to you of yes, I can totally see how that happens and how I've personally separated that free flow in an area of my life that felt safe, like vacation, just let it go. How do we do that in our day to day? When we're really actually looking for results, because when you say let go of the results, my personality is well, if you let go of them, they kind of run through your fingers. You have to be disciplined and you have to know where you're going. So what would you say to me and anyone else that's listening that's I have goals that I'm pursuing in my business?
Yeah. So that doesn't mean that you're tossing away your goals, right? It's more the idea that you're embracing the uncertain way in how you're going to get there. Because if you actually look back at your business life, it wasn't linear. It's funny how when we plan stuff, we plan it linear, but then it never happens in a linear way. So all I'm saying is enjoy the roller coaster ride. Sometimes explore a different way of approaching businesses. If you've been I'm sending out cold emails all the time and you just keep forcing it that way. And you're if I just send out enough of these and it's maybe that's not the way. Let's try something out. Let's experiment. Let's be open to what is possible, because then you will see more opportunities. And more importantly, you'll have more fun through the process. And what's ironic is a lot of people leave a corporation, right? They leave that stressful 70-hour work week and they're like, oh, I'm going to create my own business so I can do it my way, right?
Right.
And then they're running their own business in the exact same stressful way they ran it in their corporation. So it's just you are now the boss. You want 6 weeks of vacation, then figure out how you can do that, make enough money so you can have those 6 weeks of vacation. I know someone who has a very lucrative coaching business. She has no to-do list. I don't even know how she does it, but she does it. So it's it's figuring out what's productive for you, right? It doesn't have to be productive for everyone. And that's where it's all about testing, experimenting, and then also getting really bored, meaning not doing anything, not on Netflix, not on social media, not making your to-do list, and just get really bored and just listen for a little bit and listen to that curious mindset, that curious inner child that's whispering you. And it's write a blog post or start that podcast, the thing that you're really excited about, but also scared about. I'll give you a perfect example of productivity for me, right? When I wake up in the morning, one of the first things I do is I make a TikTok. It makes no sense. It's not going to bring me any money. It's a ridiculous, funny video just for me. But because I do that, it frames my day by positively priming my mind. And then even though that's not productive, quote unquote productive, it's one of the most productive things I do all day because I make this thing, it brings happiness to people's lives. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, what other cool things can I get into? While
So
still
you're referencing, sorry to cut you off. So you're referencing, you're getting in your flow by doing something fun with TikTok, right? Like I'm watching your hands. For those of you listening, you can't see his hands, but he's pretty much saying like, and then with his hands, he's in his flow. Yeah, what does flow mean to you?
Well, flow, the way in which it's defined in positive psychology by Dr. Csikszentmihalyi is when the difficulty of a challenge meets your skill level. So what I mean by play is you're doing something, and it can be anything, but it brings you fully present, and it's really challenging for you, but also really fun because you know that you're pushing yourself to your true potential. So, a lot of people might think like play is just like frivolous and like happy and stuff like that, but it could be like a really challenging but also exciting time, right? Like the first time you write a book, the first time you hop on a podcast, the first time you speak on stage and all the preparation. If you're having fun creating it, then you're playing while you're doing it.
Okay, I love that. Honestly, as you're describing flow and play, you're wearing a Lego bow tie as I'm looking at you right now, right? And you have these like basketball hoops behind you and a foosball table. And so it is the play in the sense of let's play. But when I hear you say play and flow, the first thing that's coming to my mind is like, oh my gosh, like I'm so lucky. I literally view coaching as play. So when you see the intersection of like skill set, challenge, and like your zone of your talent, I leave a coaching session with a client with more energy. Right. I don't care what's going on in my day. I don't care what is going on in my business. Yep. When I'm with a client, I am totally like there in the flow. And I've always said it was something incredibly magical, but it is that flow, that intersection of I can wipe everything else going on in the world.
Right. Now, Gay Hendricks, this amazing psychologist, speaks about that as your zone of genius. So a lot of times we spend a great deal of our time in zone of greatness, which is things that we get complimented on because we're really good at it. When we like it, we kind of like it. But your zone of genius is when you're fully you. You're basically being paid to be you. And that is why so many people probably love your coaching, is because you're just fully you. And by you being fully you, you're giving permission for them to also show up fully.
Right. And so I can see how that's really easily squeezed out in many of my clients' businesses across all industries. I mean, think of an interior designer that got into design because they're incredibly creative. They love design, and yet they're running this business and feel like the last thing on their list is time to actually design for their clients, right? Or you have, let's give another example. I have a few organic farmer clients, right? And so they got into it because they love to farm, and yet they're running this business and they're literally figuring out like, how do I get on the land, enjoy it, be fully present in the thing that started the business, but then I have to be over here like doing all the things to grow the business. Right. And so we're always torn between squeezing out the thing that lights us up and actually created the idea of being in business to the things that have to happen to grow our business. Right. And so what would you say to that person that feels like they're constantly torn between their flow state and the things that actually need to get done in the business?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Marcus Buckingham actually refers to this as their red thread work. What is the work that gets you fully in the zone, right? And I think what I would challenge your listeners to do is to track that work. How much do you currently spend on your red thread work or your flow work in comparison to all of your other stuff, right? Maybe it is only 25%. So by simply increasing it just slightly, it helps you get through all of the other work much faster. So it's just being able to be aware. A lot of this is always about awareness, as you know, right? Of like, and then figuring out when can I do my red thread work? When is it best? Is it best in the morning because it frames my day? Is it best in the middle of the day? Like how can I always incorporate it into each day, even if it is just like 30 minutes in a day, right? Or maybe you all pack it in just on a Friday, but figure out what energizes you the most about that work and make sure you actually schedule this playtime or this flow time to actually do that. Because you have to keep reminding yourself as to the why of why you started your business in the first place. And I think a lot of people forget their why, you know?
Yes.
And a challenge I sometimes tell people to do when they forget their why is I ask them to reach out either to their clients or their friends and have them reflect back and say, what value do I bring to your life? What value does like my business bring to your life? And just hearing people repeat that back, all that love and admiration, you're like, oh, this is so great, right? And then the second question I ask people to ask their clients or their friends is, when have you seen me most joyful, most present, most in play? And then they'll remind you of that if you've like forgotten it. And you're like, oh yeah, I do love being in the field, talking to clients directly, you know, shaking hands, but in this case, just giving elbows, you know, but I do remember that, you know, I need to figure out a way in which to just do a little bit more of that. Not everything, but just a little bit more each and every week, like Kaizen.
Okay, I love that example. So that is really the work I do with my clients, right? Is like, how do you strategically create that plan? Because they come to me and they're like, I literally have no more time to do these things that I actually started in my business for. And so part of it is that, you know, it's kind of like the formula of pieces. I see them like pieces on a game board is, you know, this is when, are you doing the best activities that you should be doing as the owner? Are you delegating? Are you running efficiently? Do you have workflows? Like you have to go through all of that, because if the goal is to double down on your flow state, which is the best way, I truly believe, and Jeff, you and I talked about this prior to recording, is like that is the best place a business owner can be in their business is their flow state, right?
Absolutely.
Just as if you're having, you know, if you hire employees, you want them in their best place to serve the business. Like you want their skill sets to be maximized and used. And so to do that, you have to have a plan of how you're going to redesign how your business operates so that you absolutely can be in your flow state more often.
Yeah. It reminds me, like you want to be paid to be you, right? Like that's why you started your business. So you have to be asking yourself consistently, am I being me right now? Or am I being an accountant right now? And
right.
Is this the best use of my time? If I'm really bad at this, can I outsource this work and then spend more time in my flow state? And you might be like, well, I can't afford an accountant. If you're in your flow state, you'll make enough money to afford that accountant. Okay. So
okay. This is amazing. Okay. I love this. So like, if you don't know if you're in your flow state or not, like I'm seeing this in my head and I'm just like speaking this out loud as I'm processing it as like a magnet. So think of the things that you are like procrastinating on, that you suddenly have everything else to do in the world before doing your bookkeeping. Like you're going to really be clear about the things that drain your energy. And then you're going to know about the things that bring you joy and you feel like you're in your flow and your play. And so if you really don't know right now which is which, like have that quiet time that Jeff recommended is just listen, because I guarantee you know, but you're not listening because you're not sure how to fix it once you listen. But there is solution for this. I just want everyone to hear this is like the first step, like Jeff said, is the awareness. So listen to yourself and figure out where you're in your flow and where you're not. And we need to find solutions for that.
And we're not perfect. Like I hate paperwork. When I see paper, it's like kryptonite to me. You know, filing it and like, oh my goodness, what do I have to do today with that? So I've outsourced some of that work, or I'll do a lot of my flow work and then I'll like file while I binge watch Netflix. Okay. So like
right.
Ways in which I'm using my time. Oh, and this is also really important, which I'm sure you've talked about before. What are your most productive times in the day? You know, and how are you double down on it with the work that you really want to do and not spending it on the work that you don't want to do?
Absolutely. I think that's really important. And I honestly, you could say it in every episode. People need to hear this. It has to do with like where your energy flows are, but like where do you get energy? So for me, and I've said this, I'm going to say it again, like I get energy from coaching and being with people, okay? Virtually, via Zoom even. I'm an extrovert, so that's where I get my energy from. So my appointments don't start with my clients until 11 o'clock. And most often they start at 4, then 3, then 2, and I'll work my way from the bottom of my day up my day. And the reason is because things that require my energy that is not giving me energy is what I put in the top of my day. So what I mean is like I have my highest internal energy in the morning. So I'm going to do the things that feel a little bit energy depleting. And then when I'm already tired, you put me in a coaching session, it does not matter if I'm tired or not, because that energy, that flow state gives me my energy. And so I would encourage you to, whomever is listening, is to just observe that as well as like what gives you energy, what takes you energy, and make sure you're aligning that with your natural flows in your day of energy level. Yeah, for sure.
I love that.
So can you give us some practical ways to add additional play, like outside of like our like best activities, right? What are some other ways that you have seen work for business owners to just integrate play so they don't have to wait till their next vacation and they don't have to wait till the weekend? What could that look like in a typical day?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I run this workshop called Your Future is Where Your Fun Is, right? And what we do is we tie a lot of the attendees' core values to their play. So we ask them, what did you love to do as a kid? What was your favorite thing that you loved to do as a kid? And then we analyze what that looked like. So for me, I love to combine board games together to make this epic long board game of Candyland, Chutes and Ladders, Mousetrap, Monopoly, all of it together. And then I would have my sisters play with me, and my sisters hated it, but I loved it. But when I explore why I loved it, I explored it's because it's creative, because it creates this unique experience, and because there's an ability to have a connection and create these really memorable moments. So I first identified those values, and then I'm like, what is that work? What is something that's creative, connection-filled, and provides a unique experience? And I make sure that I at least do one of those things each day. So that's what I would challenge your listeners to figure out is like, what is that? What is that bubbles up for me? In addition to just like your flow state, but just like fun little things because a lot of times I think we think productivity is very linear. I get everything done on my to-do list and then I'm done. First off, when do you finish your entire to-do list?
Never.
Have we ever finished our entire to-do list? No. There's never been a time where we're like, we are done with the to-do list. Look, everyone, let's relax.
Yeah, that means I'm out of business when that to-do list is done.
So I think it's more the idea of like when you accomplish certain things, there should be play in the celebration. There should be more play in like actually it being present when you do something amazing. The amount of people that are like so nervous to speak on stage or so nervous to like, start a coaching practice or write their first blog post or their first book. And then as soon as they do it, instead of being like, this is amazing, they go, okay, what's the next thing? And you're like, no, let's celebrate. Let's literally celebrate it, because that energizing feeling, like savoring that's why you started the business in the first place. Actually reflecting and savoring with somebody else. And this is a technique I learned from my play mentor, Gwen Gordon, where she actually has us describe what is that feeling like that I just accomplished this thing. Oh, I feel so productive, but not only I just feel like I can accomplish anything in the world. And then that person reflects on what you just said to be like, ooh, by hearing you say that you feel like you accomplish anything in the world, I know this for a fact. And it just excites me that I can support you in this. And you just keep going back in this savoring exercise and you really actually feel it. And that will give you more energy to deal with that paperwork that you have to do later on.
Right. You're like bottling that energy and really soaking up everything you can get out of it. I mean, you worked your tail off to write that book or get on that stage or get that next client or fill in the blank. Like that is what you were pursuing to do. You put your time, energy, and attention in it. Stop and pause. You know, Jeff, we didn't know each other prior to you reaching out to me about being a guest. And when we chatted, I was just in awe about how much similarity there is in really being able to teach play and how it affects productivity. It was very similar. You know, one of the questions I actually ask my clients in an onboarding assessment is, do you celebrate your wins? Like it's a yes or no question. I have a lot of yes or no questions. I want to know where they're at. And one of them specifically says, do you celebrate your wins? And for me, I've intuitively known, I know that you may not know, but I don't teach productivity is you just checklist the items. Like I really think it's about the person and how we can show up our best. And I just want to reiterate what Jeff said is like part of showing up our best is like pausing and celebrating ourselves as the business owner. You're the most valued asset in the business. And if you can't say, way to go, and like you actually validate the work that you've done, it's going to feel a lot harder to go up the next mountain. And so I love what your savory exercise was that you just shared with us is like really experience that.
I think also one thing that comes up for me as well is defining what productivity is to you, because it looks different for every single person. And my friend Angie Cole talks about this a lot, but a lot of times, especially in America, we tie our self-worth to our productivity. And what COVID did was it challenged us all to be like, oh, I'm not being as productive anymore. Should I be more productive? How come, and we had to really reflect on, well, what is actually my productivity and how important is that to my actual self-worth? Am I tying how much money I make to how much I'm actually worth? And really questioning that, because if you're able to define like, I have value whether I'm productive today or not productive today, you actually are then going to be more productive, ironically, because you're not always measuring yourself up to some unbelievable standard. I think a lot of times we see, these world-renowned speakers and they're producing all the time and they have videos that they're producing every single day. And we're like, I'll never be able to do that. You don't have to. That's not you. Figure out, how do you want to show up for work? How do you want to lead your life? You can run your business however you want. And I think, if anything, this time period has shown that a lot of people have no idea what they're doing. And then they're giving advice to other people. And it's like, don't listen to them. Listen to you. Listen to your inner child. Listen to that inner voice. You are the expert of yourself more than anyone else. And you don't have to compare yourself to everyone else. You are awesome by yourself.
Yes, I agree with that. I do think we should always be reconciling any advice with our own internal North Star. I think that's really, really important. Just to reflect back on some experiences that my clients have had during the pandemic, to speak to what you were saying, is, Jeff, I define productivity as investing your best time into your best activities. Your best time is how you show up your best, right? When you are your best, like you're able to get in that flow state was what you would call it. But your best activities change from person to person depending on your goals. And I will also say it also depends on the season that your business or life is in. So I have clients that do check-ins before a coaching session and they'll say, I rate myself as like a 1.5 out of 3 or a 2 out of 3 on productivity this week. I was handling health insurance. My husband got laid off and we had to make sure the family's health insurance was taken care of. And I was just really pulled out of the business. That conversation immediately when I get on a call says, what were your goals for last week? What was your highest and best use as the person you are in your family, a spouse, a mother, and as a business owner? And it's about reframing it. In that moment, that was the best use of her time. And she was highly productive. She got it to the end. She found a solution. Her family's happier than ever and now has insurance. And you know what? Sometimes that is required, that you are not, your number one priority is not in your business. And another example too, Jeff, is that I noticed this like March, April, and into May, but more so is like the number one priority for a lot of business owners was their own mental health. Like end of day, it was keep some plates spinning, but you had to prioritize whatever it took to keep your mental health strong. Yes. Whether that was exercise and mindset and getting outside to get some fresh air, like everything changed for everyone, whether it was in their business or on their home life and their home front. And I got to tell you, that was their best use of their time because now they can show up their best to really serve their business in the way they want. So it was a great entry, Jeff. I just wanted to share those for listeners is like, yeah, this is not just about a checklist. It's about how do we really prioritize what really matters in both business and life because we're people.
I just love that so much because also what comes up for me is asking people, the normal that you were doing before, do you want to go back to that? Or during with this time of reflection, can you figure out a new way to be productive as well as a new way to be playful? And the other thing that I ask people to do, and this is part of the reframing as you remind me of this, is a lot of times you are already playing. You just haven't recognized that as play. I remember coaching a lawyer and she was just like, I don't play enough. And then I was like, well, what do you do? And she goes, oh, I mediate and I get groups that hate each other to agree on something. And I'm like, that must be really fascinating. And she went on like 5-minute like discussion about how interesting that was. And I was like, that is your play. So I think sometimes even looking back at what you're already doing, be like, and give yourself credit for the play that you're already doing.
Right. And enjoy it. Now you attach that story to it as like, oh, this is play and it's not work, and how much better is running your business, right? You know, just to circle back to is one thing that you had said about, you know, what did you expect 2020 to be? And it was like, you know, whether you were getting married or going on these big trips and like, you know, during this pandemic is like, I have personally, I'll speak for myself, is redefined where I find joy. It's not that next trip. It's not, you know, it's not something down the road. For me, in my mental health, right? I knew quickly I needed to find moments of joy in all the little things day to day to keep things going. So joy for me right now is that my whole family has lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. It seems little. It was not. You know, my husband was at work, my son was at school, I'd be home alone all day working. And so I literally, it wasn't like, oh, that's just the new norm. I was like, oh, that's the new norm. That's exciting. How can we be purposeful about our lunchtime together? And so just finding joy in the ebb and flows, that's not going to be forever. My husband went back to work recently. My son's going to be going to school, I think maybe recently, possibly, I don't know. But obviously that's going to be for a season. But finding joy in the little things, I think, and finding the play in it can be incredibly valuable to showing up our best in our business.
Absolutely. That gratitude exercise is amazing. As like, and a lot of people, Sean Acker pitches this a lot of like writing 3 things that you're grateful for, but not even just 3 things that you're grateful for around or that surround you, but also 3 things that you're grateful for about yourself. And giving some praise to yourself. Like, I'm grateful that I'm like showing up and I'm fully present with my kids. That's a really amazing thing, right? And celebrating that. And then another positive priming thing you can do is a lot of people love to anticipate stuff. They actually, when you travel, a lot of times your joy comes from thinking about the possibility of when it's going to happen. Yeah. So create these small ways of anticipating, like, ooh, we're going to have like movie night tonight or something small, or, you know, and then actually thinking about that also gives you a little boost of energy. So think about that, of always planning something really playful and fun in your business each week.
Yes. Okay. So I just want to tie this also to something as simple as taking breaks. So I have episodes about the power of taking breaks, right? So here's the deal. you literally think you don't have enough time to have fun. You think you don't have enough time to take breaks, but that is a story that you are telling yourself and you are believing it. And now that is your reality. And if after listening to Jeff and I speak today about the value of play and finding joy and how it gives us energy and quite frankly, enjoy your life because your business is so much of your life, I would ask you to rewrite that story for yourself. Can you ask yourself, can I have breaks? Can I have play? Can I also be productive and reach my goals? And I would venture to say the answer is absolutely yes if you choose that to be your reality and story. So, Jeff, what is it that you want to do in your career? Like I know I'm taking a hard right here, but I just think it is so fascinating that you chose play. And I know you speak and you do workshops and trainings. Like, obviously this is what brings you joy, right? Like, is it like the rippling effect of like bringing joy to other people? What is it that is your life work through play?
So that's a great question. I actually have a mantra, which is also another positive priming exercise I learned from positive psychology. And part of my mantra is that I want to inspire millions of people to rediscover themselves through play. And the reason why that resonates with me so much is based off of a quote I heard called, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive. Because what the world needs is for more people to come alive. And I want to use play as a way to help more people come alive. Because when that happens, it's just more impactful for everyone. When I am brave enough, even in the fear, to show up fully and speak on stage and share something very vulnerable, and then someone comes up to me afterwards and was like, that was a really moving story, and because of that, I'm now going to take this risk that I didn't before. That is so powerful, right?
Right.
Then they show up for more fully, and it affects the next person. And that just excites me so much. So whether that's me trying to eradicate toxicity from the workplace so that more people can show up fully, whether that is me addressing people's inner critic and having them play with their inner critic so that they hear that mean voice and they can actually laugh at that inner critic and be like, that mean voice is not me. That mean voice is me from third grade and I don't need to listen to it anymore. And they're able to let that go, and then all this creativity comes. I'm sure this happens to you with some of your coaching clients. Some of my clients text me or message me and they're like, I just got into this crazy play flow slate and I just kept writing. And then I started writing in a circle. I don't know why, but I wrote in a drawing area. But then I just wrote a whole workshop that should have took me at least a month to write. And I just did it in one sitting. So that magic that I can have, I don't know how long I'm going to be around. So why not in every single interaction, figure out a way in which I can be fully present and help myself tap into my inner child, and thus give permission for someone else to do the same.
Oh my gosh, that is just amazing. Okay, Jeff. So if my listeners would love to find out more about what you're up to and connect with you, where can they do that?
Absolutely. So they can find me at rediscoveryourplay.com. And then also my handle is Jeff Harry Plays, JeffHarryPlays. And that handle is good for TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
Okay, awesome. And we'll make sure that we link out to all that in the show notes. So wherever you're listening to this episode, just tap the notes and you'll be directly linked to Jeff to connect with him. Thank you so much, Jeff. This has been fun and very insightful. So thank you so much for being on Productivity Straight Talk.
Thanks so much for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Productivity Straight Talk. And I sure hope you found today's episode to be valuable. I personally enjoyed the episode tremendously, and I love when I can invite guests on that share a different perspective and let me see things in a different way, and even sometimes challenge me. And the challenge that he may or may not know he gave me is to ensure to prioritize play within my workday. Like you, I work incredibly hard. And sometimes it seems like it needs to be this certain way to show up each day to be so focused. And when I looked back and I really asked myself, what are some of the best times that I've worked in my business and shown up in my business? It has always been when I'm incredibly filled with joy and what he calls play. Before talking to Jeff, I had envisioned that the workplace needed to be, either more professional or like in Las Vegas, we have Zappos. And Zappos is known for a very fun and creative culture. In fact, I remember actually doing a tour because I was so interested in the culture that I had heard that they had at Zappos. And when I walked through the offices and I saw the most strangest things, quite honestly, but it was to bring about a playful environment. That wasn't for me. That wasn't the best way that I knew I could focus. It seemed like there was so much going on. There wasn't that much structure. And that was my perspective, probably almost 10 years ago. And now looking back, play doesn't need to be that you're essentially just playing games or that the office space needs to look a certain way. That because of what Jeff shared, play can really be, how do you find joy? How do you get into your flow? How do you ensure that you prioritize that in your day-to-day so that it fuels you and gives you more energy? I am so grateful for this conversation for myself, and I hope you found it to be valuable too, and that you go and find your flow state, and you find the times and the situations in which you can add some more play to your business. Because guess what? We got into business because we wanted to enjoy our lives and running our businesses. And there is a lot of work to running our own businesses. And so why not integrate play more often? All right, that's my special invitation to you. And I'm also talking to myself. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on my conversation with Jeff today, what will you take action on? Where can you integrate some play into your day-to-day? How can you ensure that it's not an either or? You work really hard during the week and then you play on the weekend. How can you look at your week as a whole, because we are people as a whole, and really see enjoyment, flow, play, lightheartedness in our day-to-day? Now, if you have not already done so, make sure you head on over and grab my free mini training called Take Back Your Time. If you are currently telling yourself or whispering under your breath to others, there's never enough time, I wish I had more time, then I invite you to take this free mini training where I will show you how to reclaim 30 minutes back each and every day. That's compounded every single day. What could you do with an additional 30 minutes every day? Head on over and grab it at amberdelagarza.com/take back your time. Again, that's Amber Delagarza, DELAGARZA.com. Take back your time. So that's my straight talk for you today. Until next time, have a productive week.